Hi everyone, it's Exoman, and I want to talk about traveling and about safety advisories and caution and fear and Mexico specifically. Just got back from a trip to Mexico. My wife and I we stayed in a resort down there, and this is the second time we've been in that particular area of Mexico. It's along the Riviera Maya. If you know Mexico, you know it. On the eastern coast, it wraps around the Gulf of Mexico and then comes up onto the Yucatan Peninsula. And then when you make the bend around there, you're on the Caribbean side of Mexico. That whole stretch down there is full of resorts and beaches. And for my money, it's one of the safer areas to travel in Mexico. But there's a lot of fear. And I witnessed that firsthand. And before we went down there, I actually had people warning us, hey, they're hanging people over the border wall, they're kidnapping and killing people and robbing people down there. The violence is horrible. You're very likely to get killed or kidnapped, or and on and on and on in Mexico. So yes, there is violence, and yes, you can be hurt in Mexico. But let's dial that down and let's talk about that a little bit. How many statistics don't bear out the sentiment or the theory that I'm going to get hurt when I go down there? They don't. And here's the thing. I think 2 or 3 years ago, these crimes had escalated somewhat. There were 100 murders of Americans in Mexico. Now, when you take into consideration the fact that there were millions and millions and millions of visitors from America to Mexico, well, you start to learn that statistically, what's more likely is that you will be killed in America as an American than you will, I hate to say that, but that's the truth, than you will in Mexico. So let's say, I think way north of 30 million travelers visit Mexico every year from other parts of the world. There are a lot of Caucasians, if you will, traveling down. There's a lot of Europeans and Americans, and I mean, we saw everybody, every color, every walk of life. East Indians, Germans, blacks from England, just all manner of people travel there. And when we were there last time, there was a shooting in Playa del Carmen, 25, maybe 30 miles north of where we were staying. Shootings here all the time. It's not just Mexico, it's not just America, it's all over the world now, sadly. You could be sitting in a church in South Carolina or somewhere in Texas and be shot. That's just the sad reality in the way things are going right now. But I grew up I have a loud phone. That means there will be another. I grew up in a fearful environment. My mother was a very fearful woman. Her life was in fact motivated in fear. And a lot of the things we did in the situations where we arrived in our lives were the result of her fear motivation, as I called it. And I got some of that, but I tried to ferret that out of my soul as I grew older and hopefully wiser. I learned that you can live in fear and just not really experience life to the fullest, or you can get out there and live your life. It's statistically proven that 95% of all humans are going to die. Yeah, no, of course that's a joke. Everybody's going to die. None of us get out alive. So if it's your time, it's your time. Use your head, use common sense, and you can lengthen that, but you can't prevent it. So if we're talking about crime in Mexico, what we're talking about, so a lot of people don't understand this, that most of that crime, even though, I say statistically you're more likely to get killed in America than you are in Mexico, places in Mexico where people are the most vulnerable tend to be North Mexico, border towns, places like that, dangerous large cities on the interior. But when you're traveling in Cancun and the Yucatan and along the Riviera Maya, in places like that, it's a lot different experience. And you're usually, if you do it right, and if you can, save up the money and go to a resort, you're usually very safe. A lot of times there's no reason to leave a resort. I mean, some of these places are over 100 acres of land. They're gated, they're fenced, they're just very safe. They have very good security. The place where we stayed had over 700 rooms. It was next to an amusement park called Xcaret, and we'll show you some of this in our videos. But I kind of wanted to just get on here and make a video to explain to people it's not what you think. If you just think Mexico is a bad place full of bad people and you're going to get killed when you go down there, that's being foolish. That's being ignorant of the facts. Statistics won't bear you out. You can get, like I say, you can get killed in a church here in the States. You can get gunned down just as easily, perhaps a lot more easily than you can down in Mexico. When we got there, when we arrived at the Cancun airport, it's not like we're going and hailing a cab and possibly being let out to the jungle. That's all pre-planned. You have a travel agency. You have very reputable companies represented at the airport. They have curbside kiosks, and whenever we go down there, that's all pre-arranged. We have a driver arranged, and they show up in a specific van, and the representatives at the airport locate the driver. Everything is checked. All things are good and safe, and you're taken promptly to your hotel by a very courteous and professional company. So that's, there can be various ways of doing that, but that's the way we do it. We don't take chances. Now, we got on the road, on the highway, going south to our resort, and one of the first things that caught my attention was a young girl in her 20s, dressed in hippie clothing, flowing locks of hair, with a backpack and her thumb out. That's how you get killed in Mexico. That's one of the surest ways to, I hate to say that, it's not like that's going to happen necessarily. Much more likely that you could find yourself disappeared by taking those chances. And I would say that I think there were 100 people murdered in 2014. I would venture to say that a large percentage of that 100 people were not people going down to resorts more south in Mexico, safe resorts with arranged drivers and things like that, but rather people entering North America, border crossing situations, and going out partying late at night. And let me tell you, I can't remember who it was, but where it was. I had this conversation with someone who was captured and in Mexico, and I think it was possibly Tijuana or one of those towns near there. They were out partying late at night in a club, and someone came and essentially bought the group of people. This was a very believable story that was told to us by people who were involved, who were taken into custody or actually kidnapped, and they were brought to a place and they were actually sold. They said they heard these guys speaking in Spanish. They were in some kind of like little holding shed, and the people had guns, and some other people came, and they could tell they were making a negotiation. They were all loaded into a truck, and they found themselves at sunrise in a field picking strawberries. And they thought they were all going to die. They were pretty sure They were all scared to death. They were all in shock. Nobody was speaking. They didn't know what to do. They picked some damn strawberries. The person telling the story said that they would just bring a little water, and let them drink, and they weren't talking to them, they weren't explaining anything, but they were basically enslaved and scared for their lives. This person said that at some point the guards turned and the strawberry rows, if you've ever seen a strawberry farm, there were mounds, and they hid down in the furrow of between the mounds, and they said on their bellies just shimmied as fast as they could out of the proximity of the guards and the group, and managed to get out alive. They actually got a ride to safety somehow. Anyway, that was a long story, but that is, that is just an illustration that there is a reality to that. There are dangers like that. You might not get enslaved like that in America, but there is that trade here too. Every now and then we find a house that gets that is harboring sex slaves and things like that in our cities, right here at home. So that kind of stuff can happen anywhere. But again, if you're traveling to Mexico, it's not this black and white picture where you're putting yourself in jeopardy just by going down there. You just have to do more research, read information about the industry, about the crime statistics if you need to. Use a reputable travel agency, go to reputable resorts, and you will find yourself, for the most part, very safe. Like last time we went down, we stayed, I think I said it was about 30 miles south of Playa del Carmen, and there was a shooting in Playa del Carmen. It wasn't a bunch of Mexican bad guys going into that club. It was a nightclub looking to kill Americans. It was a drug-related attack, and they were looking to specifically kill or get even with or settle a score with some associates. And so sadly, a few people got killed in the crossfire, and it was a panic. And we had people, our family and friends, contacting us while we were down there, and we said, look, it was a shooting. It's just like the kind of thing that sometimes happens here, and we weren't there. And if we had been, there's 50 clubs in Playa del Carmen. If we had been there and had been there at the time of morning or late night that it happened, we could have been in jeopardy. But interestingly enough, on this trip, we met someone who was there, and they got out with their skin, and hey, that kind of stuff happens. But it's pretty rare, and you just don't. I wouldn't personally want to engage in the kind of excursions that these people engage in, mostly because I'm not a kid anymore, and my wife and I may have done that 30 years ago, 30 years ago, but that's not our thing anymore. And what that is these excursions, they go from the hotels where they're completely safe. We had people that did it at our hotel, and they explained it to us. They said, you get on a bus at your hotel at like 11 o'clock at night, and you go down to places like Cancun or Playa del Carmen, and you're dropped off, and basically you go clubbing, and I assume it includes tickets to whatever show, whatever club you're going to, and then they pick you up at like 3:30, and you're back at your hotel by 4:30 in the morning. That doesn't sound like a whole lot of fun to me, and it sounds like a dangerous proposition to me. Doing that in New Orleans is dangerous. Chicago, Detroit, you can't play around like that here anymore either, without being very, very cautious and have everything prearranged. But anyway, I just wanted to go over some of this and try to give some perspective. Perspective changes, makes a lot of difference. If you just hear bad stuff and you don't really know for yourself, or you don't know what you're talking about, or people that tell you don't know what they're talking about, then you're just going to get a prejudiced view of things, and you're going to live your life in fear and maybe miss out on a lot of experiences. I'm not an ambassador for Mexico. It just happens to be a place that's close enough, that has the kind of weather that my wife and I are looking for, and is affordable enough for us to go and have a great time on our budget and come back safely. So it's just a great experience for us. It has been the past 3 times we've gone down there. First we went to the West Coast in the 90s, and now we're over on this side of the country. We go to the East Coast of Mexico. But yeah, that is what I wanted to say, and be sure to check out our videos on our trip to Mexico. I'm sure I'll be posting quite a few of them here, and I hope you enjoy them, and thank you very much for watching, everyone. Take care.